First he sent a slave and they beat him. Then they beat and they shamed him. Then they beat and they shamed and they wounded him. And now he sends the son. There's another opportunity, right? There's an opportunity where you can either say, I'm going to agree, I'm going to confess, I'm going to build the bridge, or allow the bridge to be built. Built is probably a better way to say it. Or I'm going to cut off opportunity here. And this is just a quick little side note for kind of theology. This kind of implies that like there is a process where God will finally get to where you will cut yourself off from him. And I don't want to build a whole theology up, but you can see how like they reject the first slave, and the rejections get harder and harder until finally they're willing to kill his son. And I think sometimes in our life, like God keeps convicting you until finally you're willing to just say, you know what, God, I don't want to hear it anymore. Get out of my life. Right? So God works with us. He keeps convicting us. He keeps trying to build bridges, but our stubbornness and our sinfulness and our desire to be the masters of the land, to be king of our own castle, right? There can only be one king. So either I let the master have his way, or I become master. But me becoming master also has consequences and is part of a scenario where actually this whole world and this whole life and everything I have is the master's property. So for me to do that is insane, but it's exactly what we do. It's the exact attitude we take. This is my life. This is my property. This is my control. And God, you don't have any right to speak to it. That's why it's insane when people act like, well, I'm a Christian, and Jesus saved me, so now I can do whatever I want. It's like, well, where's your relationship with God? Where's your love for his goodness and his grace and his wisdom and his power and the fact that he is the owner and the creator of all that you have and are? It's just a stubbornness, an unwillingness to say, you know what, God? You do have a right to my life. And I'm willing to let that bridge be built. I confess, I agree with you that I have been sinful, that I've fallen short. And it's amazing that God does it 3 times until finally he sends his son. What are they thinking? The land makes them sons. They are special from their location of birth. So now you can see how Jesus is talking directly to the Jews of his day, who think that because they are biologically Abraham's seed, that somehow they are necessarily God's special people. That's their whole attitude. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all of the religious leaders, the scribes, they think that because they've studied scriptures and they've built walls around religion and they've created very specific standards and they've raised their children up and forced them to follow it, that now they are, well, we deserve this land. We are the proper heirs. Who is Jesus to tell us the truth? We've spent years building this temple. Who are you? Right? So Jesus is not only talking to our world, but he's talking directly to his world, and that speaks to us today. Verse 15. So they threw him out of the vineyard, and they what? Killed him. Here's the question. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? Remember the story about the rapist? What do you do when someone will not relent from horrendous sin? What do you do? If you underestimate his stubbornness, his unwillingness to let go of the sin, if you think that, well, he's just having a bad day, well, then you'd say, well, there needs to be more mercy and more mercy and more mercy and more mercy until the man has raped 10 more people, right? And this is, now, generally, the whole liberal idea, right? Humans really are good, and a man would not go through all of that training and all of that process and be in jail for 7 years and realize his shortcomings, and we've had mercy and kindness towards him. There's no way he would keep doing it. But the insanity of sin is that, yes, he will. There are evil people in this world. And I'm not saying it's illogical. I'm not saying it's reasonable. I'm not saying we can point out all the reasons why, as if pointing out the reasons why would change the fact. Sin doesn't make sense. It is stupid. right? We know, like, for example, the whole rape thing. We know that rape is generally based on power. It's a need to have purpose in generally a man's life. He's trying to make himself feel powerful over this person, over this child. It has nothing to do with sex usually, right? Sin having to do with me having power and me being king of my life and me controlling other people? Surprise, surprise.